right. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to Digital Dollars Now. Today is Wednesday, March 29th, and my name is Jacqueline. And today I'm going to be talking to you about some breaking news that is finally being talked about in the mainstream media and discuss how to prepare for the imminent collapse of the US dollar. And I'm also going to be talking to you about the proverbial Jenga puzzle that our government banking system is currently resembling, and government printing press that never seems to stop printing money. All right, before we get started though, first a quick disclaimer. Please be advised I'm not a professional advisor in business areas involving finance, cryptocurrency, taxation, securities and commodities trading, or the practice of law. The information and content written, broadcasted, and or disseminated by and through the Digital Dollars Now is intended for general information purposes only. Nothing written or discussed is intended to be construed or relied upon as investment, financial, legal, regulatory, accounting, tax, or similar advice. All content expressed, created, and conveyed by the Digital Dollars Now is premised upon subjective opinions pertaining to currently existing facts readily available. All right. So before I get started, the real question you should be asking yourself, because the damage has been done and this is where we are headed, is how can you safeguard yourself against the tsunami of inflation that's coming when trillions of dollars come flooding back into the United States? Do you have recession-proof cash flow? Do you have multiple streams of income? How much money can you drop into assets that will go up in value when the US dollar plummets? Because it will. Do you know how to become your own bank? Do you know how you can stake digital assets to generate passive income? And do you even know what staking is? When the cryptocurrency markets do take a hit, do you know, or do you have buy limit orders set on your exchanges? Because I am the personal opinion that when this does happen, you will likely not be able to log on to your exchanges to trade live, because these events could happen in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, or during a work day while you're at work, not right in front of your computer or on your mobile phone. It could also be that these exchanges are bottlenecked because of all the activity that's going on, that you're going to have issues even getting to log in. You might even have issues with removing your crypto off of the exchange because, when you have that much influx of activity happening, they may put a hold on assets, allowing markets to cool a little bit so that they don't go into liquidation themselves, because there's just too much cash flow being moved out at such a quick pace. This happened recently with me personally using Coinbase. They put a hold on funds that I had in the exchange for about 6 days and wouldn't allow me to move it off the exchange because of everything that was going on with their bank that they had been banking which was the Silicon Valley bank that was going through liquidation issues, bank failures, basically, because so many of its customers were moving funds out of their bank. They literally went bankrupt and had to be bailed out. So when these things start happening, we're going to see bank failures. We're going to see bank runs. We're going to see multi-million-dollar companies having issues. Do you know how to safeguard yourself against that, or even workarounds, working outside of the exchanges to be able to trade, buy and sell and things like that? Do you know how to log in, make your trades, and transfer your assets off of the exchanges and into your possession where they're safe? And if you don't, you can always come and visit me on my Patreon channel at patreon.com/digital dollars now. I'll walk you through how you can do this. I have step-by-step tutorials teaching you how to set up your exchange accounts, how to set up your asset wallets, your hardware wallets, how to safely store your assets, and how to do all these trading activities that I just mentioned to you. And near the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you about some of the assets that I personally think are going to be going up in value. These would be, in my opinion, recession-proof assets and cash flow generating assets. So stay tuned for that. Next, we're going to, in my personal opinion, I feel that we are about to enter into an economic and political perfect storm of events. For some of us who have been paying attention, this will come as no surprise. And we've been expecting this for a number of years now. I mean, really, you can't print money to infinity and expect for there to be not be an economic repercussion for that. And yes, that is exactly what our government has been doing for the past 50 years, since the 1970s when Nixon took us off of the gold standard. You know, at that time, of course, promised us it was only going to be for 2 weeks to curb inflation. And then look, 50 years later, here we are. And I know a lot of you, that sounds kind of like deja vu, because when have we heard that before? Oh, right. It was in 2020. We're going to shut down everything for 3 weeks to curb the spread of the virus, right? And then a year or so later, we're still locked down. And we're still just now getting out of the things that caused for all of our, you know, businesses, our economy. And there were a lot of businesses that didn't make it. You know, when we shut down in 2020, they lost their businesses because of that. So it's very sad. I very little faith and trust in our government. They often say one thing and do something completely different in their own self-interest that has selfish, you know, selfish reasons behind it. So for a time, we did have a military agreement with Saudi Arabia, where the US dollar had been backed by oil. Saudi Arabia, they had agreed to, you know, trade their oil in the US dollar currency, giving our dollar the petrodollar status. So it was backed by some type of real assets at one time, giving us that world reserve currency status. But unfortunately, that's no more. Saudi Arabia now has a military agreement with Russia for protection, and have been talking for some time now, well over a year, possibly 2 now, about trading their oil in currencies other than the US dollar, such as the Russian ruble and the Chinese yuan and others. So this is something that has already been talked about, considered, and is going to eventually become the reality that we're going to be living in. And I know some of you might be thinking, so what? Why should I care? That's not going to affect me, right? Well, wrong. There is coming a moment in time, and it could be as soon as a matter of weeks to months, when the BRICS nations, also known as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and others, are all going to be dumping the US dollar, meaning they're going to stop using the US dollar to trade for their oil and other commodities. This has been talked about for several years now. Agreements have been signed. This is going to happen, and it will likely happen overnight. It'll be very quick, and it will be shocking to a lot of Americans that have not been paying attention to the political landscape. Right now, I think more than half, at least half of the US dollars in circulation are overseas, being used by other countries to trade in. And when that stops, we're going to see a tsunami of biblical proportions come flooding back into the United States. Our dollar will likely be devalued and cut in half overnight, and it's going to be very shocking. Also, countries and other foreign citizens that have been holding on to US Treasury bonds as an investment, because, you know, it was considered to be a secure and safe investment that yielded good returns, they're being sold and they're going to be dumped. I think China, just in Q4 of last year, sold off a huge amount of US Treasury bonds from their balance sheets, and they're just continuing to get rid of more and more and more. They know what's coming. Right now, we're seeing countries moving away from the United States, not only in strategic relationships, but also in settlements. So why is that? And I'm of the opinion, and mainstream media is now admitting to this too, to the public at least, it's because they no longer wish to be trading using the failing US dollar. And, you know, I predict there is going to be a period of time where many people will be affected. In my opinion, it could be worse than 2008, 2009's housing crisis, where we also had bank failures and people losing their homes due to the type of loans that were being written with the huge balloon payments and things like that. We're going to see a combination of things causing more bank failures to come, and other outcomes of inflation due to the flood of dollars that will be coming back into the United States, because these central banks that are located overseas will no longer be required or need to hold on to those large amounts of US dollars in order to do business. They'll be doing business in other currencies like the yuan, like the ruble, like India's currency, and things like that. In my opinion, this is going to speed up the use of national banks implementing a new banking system with the use of their central bank digital currencies, because they're going to have to be able to compete technology-wise with the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Right now, what we're also seeing in parallel is the dying banking system. And, this is like this proverbial Jenga puzzle that I'm kind of showing you here in this picture, where, one piece at a time is being removed from this banking system, this Jenga puzzle that's sitting there. And we don't quite know yet which one of these pieces is going to be that last piece that's going to cause this entire puzzle to just come crashing down. But it's inevitable. The more pieces you remove, the more this destabilizes and eventually will fall down. And just like dominoes, one falling right after another, we're going to see another one bite the dust, just like these banks that just keep failing and failing because customers are losing faith in, in the bank's ability to be able to secure their assets and their funds that they have with them. And they're going to pull their assets out of these traditional old banks, the old banking systems, and try to put them in things that are more secure, things that can be assets, real assets that they can hedge against the inflation that they know is coming. So while we see the cryptocurrency sector right now is on the rise, I mean, Bitcoin, XRP, a lot of other cryptocurrencies have, gone up in value over just the last few weeks, which has been amazing to see. We have had a nice little rally. I think that might continue for a short time, and then we're going to see some more volatility in the markets. But people are rushing to put their money into something that they feel more secure with, something that has inherent value. And the technology behind these cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, the ability to move funds within seconds for very low costs, there is value there. That is what is so amazing about this technology. And the banks have they have a roadmap in place to roll out their own central bank digital currencies by 2025. And I think this is in line with the ISO 20022 financial standards that will need to be fully implemented by 2025, at least internationally for banks, for processing payments and things like that. And I think this economic crisis that's looming could actually speed up the use of these CBDCs by these central banks because they're going to have to. So, all right, let me show you a few news clips where this is all being discussed in the mainstream media, finally. I know for the last, about 2 years, they haven't admitted to any of this. They've been assuring the public that everything's fine, that this could never happen. The US could never use their, dominance as the world reserve currency. And they've been kind of gaslighting the public for the last 2 years and putting this off as long as they could, but they can't do that anymore. And they are finally admitting what many of us have already known for quite a while, what's going to happen. So let me share a couple of these clips with you real quick. And first, we're going to CNN, mainstream media right here, talking about Putin and Xi Jinping's meeting. Let me go ahead and blow this up.
First, here's my take. The most interesting outcome of the 3-day summit between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping got limited media attention. Describing their talks, Putin said, "We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia and the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America." So, the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter, are together actively trying to dent the dollar's dominance as the anchor of the international financial system. Will they succeed? The dollar is America's last surviving superpower. It gives Washington unrivaled economic and political muscle. It can slap sanctions on countries unilaterally, which frees that country out of large parts of the world economy. And Washington can spend freely, certain that its debt will be bought up by the rest of the world. The war against Ukraine, combined with Washington's increasingly confrontational approach to China, have created a perfect storm in which both Russia and China are accelerating efforts to diversify away from the dollar. Their central banks are keeping less of their reserves in dollars, and most trade between them is being settled in the yuan. They are also making efforts to get other countries to follow suit. The Biden
All right, I'm going to stop right there. And what's interesting, it's almost like all of these different mainstream media news broadcast outlets are given cue cards, and they all use some of the same trigger words like perfect storm and certain things that they say. I find that very interesting, even though you may have one news station that is more geared towards the left and liberal viewership. And then you have another, so I'm going to show you the other side, Fox News, which is geared more towards the right and their viewership is more conservative. But yet they're both using very similar words, almost like the same script, but just kind of tweaked a little bit for the viewership that they're speaking to. But like you can see in this news article here, they write out perfect storm. Everybody's talking about the perfect storm. This is stuff that, excuse me, this wording has been used, that we've been talking about, that this is coming for the last 2 years, this perfect storm of events. And now it's just funny to me how the mainstream media is now using the exact same words to describe the scenario that's happening. So let me go ahead and start this at the beginning.
King and Vladimir Putin sending an ominous message to the West during their 3-day summit this week. As new concerns rise, they are looking to undermine the U.S. dollar. Take a look at this. Vladimir Putin announced this week that Russia will begin using the Chinese yuan for international payments instead of the dollar. Saudi Arabia is also in talks with Beijing to do the same thing. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, they're in talks with Iran as well to consider an economic alliance with China and Russia. And they can even be joining the BRIC countries, which is an acronym for these countries here: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries all have emerging economies. So what happens if our economy and the U.S. dollar are no longer the world's dominant currency? Former Assistant Treasury Secretary and host of the Monica Crowley podcast, Monica Crowley, is here to weigh in. Monica, great to see you this morning. Let's start right there. What happens if these emerging economies move away from the U.S. dollar towards the Chinese yuan?
Well, good morning, Will. It's great to be with you. And it's really hard to overstate exactly how catastrophic the abandonment of the U.S. dollar would be as the world's global reserve currency. Look, since the end of World War II, the dollar has been the safe place to go, and it's been backed up by a couple of things. It originally was backed up by gold, but President Nixon took us off the gold standard, so there's no hard asset backing up the dollar anymore for the last 50 years. But also it's been backed up by the strength and economic power of the United States and the fact that oil has always been traded in dollars. If that were to end, that would mean the end of the U.S. dollar. Look, there's a perfect storm happening right now, Will. The world's reserve currency being that, having that status has been a real privilege, but we've abused the privilege by wholly reckless monetary and fiscal policies over many years, certainly over the last couple of years, which has really devalued the dollar. On top of that, now you do have this perfect storm of Biden's weakness, his war on American domestic energy production, the Ukraine war, and as you point out, because of all of these things, we've got America's enemies led by China forming a new economic bloc. And all it would take at this point now, because we're at this pivotal moment, Will, is for Saudi Arabia, who has indicated that they're open to this, to say, you know what, we're going to be open to considering other currencies to trade in oil. If that were to happen, there would be a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system. And if that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation, just raging Weimar Republic kind of inflation. If you think inflation is bad now, just wait. But more importantly, we would lose our economic dominance and we would lose our superpower status.
Monica,
All right, so I'm going to stop it there. I think she did a good job pretty much covering everything I just kind of mentioned just a few minutes ago. And this is very interesting here. I actually got a good laugh out of this. This is Kenya's president addressing his citizens, and he actually makes a really funny joke in this clip. And so I'm just going to play just a few seconds of it and then kind of explain, because English is a second language for him, and so his English and the way he terms things are a little bit different. So I'll comment on what he's really saying using the terms that he uses. So let me go ahead and play this here for you. It's only about 22 seconds.
For the people who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses. You better do what you must do, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks. And secondly,
all right. So let me rehash that a little bit for you and what he's actually saying here. So he starts out by saying, for the people who work numbers. So in my opinion, this could mean, hey, this could be the everyday average class working citizen, or it may be the people that are working in the financial sectors. Okay. Working numbers, I'm not quite sure who he's referencing there. It could be either one of those people that fall in those buckets. But then he goes on to say, he's giving you free advice. So, he's not giving you financial advice, but he is giving you free advice. And then he directs those people specifically that are holding on to the US dollar. These could be the average, like I said, working class citizens that their savings is in US dollar, because the US dollar is the world reserve currency. It's got, status, it's secure, it's been a safe investment to have as far as currencies are concerned. And he goes on to say, you certainly might want to go see your nurses. So he's making a joke right there, is like really what he's saying. You might want to go see your doctor pretty soon, because your heart might be failing for the fact that your dollars you're holding on to aren't going to be worth very much very soon. And which is kind of a funny joke. And you hear the crowd, they kind of start laughing, or at least making noise there. And he says, you better do what you must do, which in, normal speak, anyone who's paying attention to this understand that's code. Sell now. Do what you got to do. Don't worry about the American economy, the American people, how this is going to affect them. You need to look out for yourself and your family and safeguard, your investments. So he's warning his citizens of Kenya, do what you got to do. Not financial advice. This is just free advice. I'm your president. I'm telling you what's going to happen, because this market is going to be very different in a couple of weeks. And wow. That statement alone says it all. And that clip is from like 7 days ago. And he said specifically a couple of weeks. So could be 2, could be 3. I think we're going to see things starting to happen very soon. Things being announced of what's happening very soon, which will have a trickle domino effect, like I just talked about. Now, this is another gentleman that I follow and listen to. He has his own channel on YouTube, and I think he may also have a Patreon channel, not quite sure. His name is Zach Rector, and he does a lot of great daily news updates and broadcasts, and just shares some great information and insight. So I'm just going to share a few clips from his video. Feel free to subscribe to him if you like or enjoy some of the information that he shares. Yeah, so just giving a shout out to Zach. Thanks, Zach. Really appreciate all you do. Here we go.
This many people, right, all together, and then they leave, they come out. It's like the joint statement that Fed Chair Powell and Janet Yellen put out last week about supporting UBS buying out Credit Suisse and America's system remaining resilient. It's kind of like the Jim Cramer, inverse Cramer effect, right? If they're telling us everything's fine, right, we want to look here between the lines. And when we look at this data, folks, like I said, we opened up Pandora's box in 2020, and this whole new system is about to be reset right before us. Since March 2020, we have seen the following: the largest pandemic in over 100 years, over $4 trillion in printed stimulus, interest rates lowered to 0% overnight, interest rates rising at their fastest pace in history, inflation at its highest in 40 years, closest we've been to World War III, oil prices going from negative to $100 a barrel with record high gas prices, largest crypto bear market in history, record high credit card debt of $986 billion. I'm waiting to get the new print on that. I think that we're going to blow right through $1 trillion in credit card debt. Most unaffordable housing market in history, less affordable than 2008. Second and third largest bank collapse in U.S. history. If you started investing in 2020, you have seen more historic events than most people have seen in 20 years. Volatility is the new normal, and as we just covered, we now have zero reserve requirements in the banking system. Don't call it a bailout, backstops. You guys understand just how big the lies and the deception is. The world stage is watching us, right? The United States slipping away with that reserve currency status that we once had.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there because he's going to go into talking a little bit about crypto and some other things. And I wanted to jump forward to a quick section, which I kind of enjoyed and thought was good and that you may find also interesting. So let me find my little time stop here. And I'm still learning how to do screen sharing in this format for YouTube. Hoping you guys can hear these news broadcasts. For some reason, I'm not able to hear them when I share the sound through what I'm using. So anyways, here we go.
What has our government done in the past when they're trying to reset the currency? Confiscated the gold, set it at a higher price. So I'm sorry that I don't think my government's very friendly to us. I'm sorry that our government is the one that's taking 30% on average of Americans' paychecks every year. They're robbing us. Now, inflation is the hidden tax as well. And then the bailouts to the banks. You see, this is the mature conversation that I like to have in regards to the buyback. And it's not even about the buyback. That term should not be used. It's about exposing the corruption of a DC entity that hijacked this country. That's what this is about. Let me bring up.
All right. Well said, Zach. Thank you. And he makes a very good point here too. Historically, what our government has done, which is confiscate the gold and then set it at a higher price after they have it all in their possession. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't care what kind of zombie apocalypse is going on outside, ladies and gentlemen, if you are holding on to real assets, gold, silver, copper, palladium, in whatever form, bars, coins, what have you, collectibles, hold on to that, because I'm of the opinion that's going to be worth a lot of money in the very near future as far as US dollar exchange. And, you know, with the incredible inflation that we're going to be having and the prices rising of everyday goods and services, those silver coins, gold coins, whatever they may be, are going to be immensely valuable and could make all the difference with how you're able to get through the days ahead. So hold on to those if you can afford to, purchase some of these commodities now over the next few weeks, next few months, before things really do hit and we start really seeing the fallout here in the States. I would recommend that. There are lots of places you can go. I go to JM Bullion. It's a website where they sell gold and silver, and then you can have it shipped directly to you under secure mail. I find that's very easy, especially if you're just wanting to buy 1 or 2 coins at a time, and you only have a small amount to really set aside and put towards that on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. I find that this is the easiest way to do it versus calling somebody that typically they won't even talk to you unless you have 5 or 10 grand to spend with them. And don't buy the what do they call them? The SLVs. It's like a contract or some kind of piece of paper that says, oh, you own this amount of silver. I am of the opinion, if it's not in your possession, it's not your asset. So it doesn't have to be stored in your house. You can store it somewhere else safe, but you need to be able to have access to it at any given time. It can't be sitting in some obscure vault, states away from you or countries away from you. Or you just have a piece of paper saying, oh yeah, you do own this amount of silver, but guess what? We're experiencing financial difficulties. Everything that we have in our vaults is ours. We'll pay you this value for it, but we're not going to send it to you because of, what's happening in the world today. Don't allow yourself to have that kind of scenario or situation occur to you. I would highly recommend, if you are going to invest in real assets, keep it in your possession, have ownership over it, know where it is and be able to get to it if you should need it. I have used JM Bullion before, and when things have come up and I needed to sell that silver coin or gold coin, I've just gone to a gold exchange and they'll sell it to me at the market value price that that commodity is selling at that day, and I've gotten cash that day. So I can attest to the fact that this is real money. You can operate in this, and it is a store of value. And I think this store of value is going to increase due to the, economic things that are about to occur. So moving on, you don't have to believe everything that I'm sharing here with you today. I'm just showing you examples of what's being discussed in the news, the things the mainstream media is admitting that is happening today. And always do your own research. The digital Chinese yuan is a type of central bank digital currency and is issued by the People's Bank of China. The yuan's inclusion in the IMF's basket of reserve currencies on October 1st, 2016, marked a milestone for the Chinese government and campaigns for recognition as a global economic power. And as a CBDC, it's not a decentralized currency. It's considered a centralized currency because the ownership stays with, the bank. You don't own those coins. The bank owns those coins. They allow you to process payments utilizing their coins. So it is considered, like I said, a centralized currency. Why do I bring this up? I'm bringing this up because Russia and China and Saudi Arabia have been talking about using the digital yuan to trade oil rather than the US dollar. And when this happens, like I said, the US will lose world reserve currency status. So this is an article where they were talking about this stuff last year, kind of probing it. Hey, what will happen if the United States loses its world reserve currency status? And then Kenya, they have a article where they talked about a Kenya bank to roll out trading in the Chinese yuan. This was back in 2019. And mind you, this digital yuan, like I said, it's been around now for going on 7 years. It'll be 7 years in October. So, this is something that is up and running and being utilized and can be utilized now on a more massive scale outside of the borders of China and to do trading with other countries. So, all right, back to additional information I want to share with you today. So let's take a look at this insane Bitcoin chart. Whoa, wait a second, hold on. That's not Bitcoin. Oh yeah. This is how much money our government has printed in the last 100 years. Sorry about that. I know you're thinking this chart looks pretty crazy, right? Yeah, it is. And it's not even showing you the $4 trillion plus that we've printed from, 2020 to today. We've printed a lot of money and have continued to print, and it seems to be our government's solution for everything, is to just go ahead and print funds. So over the last 2 years, the US Federal Reserve has printed 80% of all dollars in existence, which is a crazy, just try to contemplate those numbers. And that printing really started on the onset of COVID and the pandemic, providing stimulus checks to Americans and other relief efforts. So they tell you that by printing money, it's not going to affect the taxpayers. It's not going to affect, the average everyday working class. That is a lie. I'm telling you right now, do not believe what these governmental officials are telling you. They are just trying to placate you and get you to just go along with whatever schemes they want to implement. It is going to have repercussions, and we're about to see what those repercussions really are. And if you're curious about how much money the government's printed over the years, feel free to go on the federalreserve.gov, website. You can look all that up, stats and stuff for yourself. So, all right. Next, one of the things I want to talk to you about is ISO 20022 compliance. This is going to be the banking standards of the future for our financial systems. And I'm of the opinion that those currencies, cryptocurrencies that are on board, that are compatible and compliant with these standards that will be required for international banking and payment processing, those currencies are going to do really well. The ones that aren't are going to fall by the wayside, or they're not going to be traded in as much. They're not going to be invested in as much. There still may be some that'll do good because they have good utility and, they serve a purpose and what they were created for. But I'm of the opinion that the ones that are going to be making the biggest moves here could be the ones that you see on the screen. So let's talk about ISO for a second. ISO is an organization that aims to set international standards in all spheres of production, encouraging trade and implementing safety and standards across the globe. This organization sets the standards for financial institutions and has the power to impact the mainstream adoption of crypto. Boom. Just that statement alone is powerful. So consider that. Now, I'm of the opinion the blockchain technology is the technology of the future that our financial systems will be utilizing to increase speed of transactions, to be able to transact 24/7 versus the banking hours that our current system runs on. And it's cheaper, faster, and you're able to transact more within a period of time. So the bottleneck and the complexities gets reduced. So ISO has, they've developed currency codes for fiat currencies under ISO 4217, but cryptos are not officially classified yet and use unofficial ISO codes. So in the future, cryptos will use what's called DTIs, which are digital token identifiers, such as XBT for Bitcoin, when they're chosen for payments by commercial banks. So the idea and the goal is for commercial banks to be able to utilize these tokens to process payments for goods and services. I think that's one of the main reasons why Bitcoin and Ethereum are so popular, because right now they're the two coins that are able to be utilized to do this on a global scale. XRP can be in the countries that they have been established in. And I believe right now they're sitting at around 55 countries that have signed on to utilize the XRP ledger in their countries. So I'll get to that in just a little bit. So over the next few years, financial institutions will be switching over to the ISO 20022 standards for communication, after which they will officially be able to use crypto for payments. That statement alone should tell you there is a time clock. Next few years, their roadmap for these standards to be implemented on a global scale is 2025. It's 2023. We've literally got 2 years here that we can prepare, start accumulating some of these assets, build a portfolio bag that, you know, is reasonable and that we can do now, because once this rocket takes off, these cryptocurrencies, in my opinion, are going to be worth a good amount of money. Currently, Ripple is the only cryptocurrency company to comply with the new standards, and they also serve as a member of the ISO 20022 management group. I mean, that's huge. And other cryptos that become ISO compliant will benefit greatly. I do believe that, but I haven't been able to read or find any information of other cryptos right now besides, you know, XRP, Ripples, that are compliant with these standards. They still have 2 years, mind you, but I mean, what the heck are they waiting on? So far, like I said, the only 2 compatible cryptos for ISO 20022 are Ripple's XRP and Stellar Lumen's XLM, these 2 at the top here. And it's rumored that cryptos like XFIN, IOTA, and Algorand are also compliant or going to be compliant or compatible, or like they're in the process of doing that. However, I haven't been able to find, I'm still doing research on that to see where they're at in that process. And there are rumors that there are other cryptos that are going to be in the process of becoming compliant, like HBAR, Quant, Cardano. However, Ripple is the only crypto company that's officially a member of the ISO 20022 management group, like I said. And people, this is huge. Not even Bitcoin has a seat at this table, not even Ethereum. Stellar, this is, consider that for a second. And some of you may or may not be familiar with Stellar Lumens. XLM is the trading symbol. It's a token that was released as the native asset by the Stellar Development Foundation, which is a nonprofit launched by Ripple's co-founder, Jed McCleb, in 2014. It's typically referred to as kind of a sister coin or sister token, to XRP. And these 2 are my personal favorites. But in my personal opinion, I think XRP is going to be the most valuable of the 2 tokens in the future, just because of its utility and what the potential it has to be used for. So you might be asking yourself, what qualifies the company Ripple to be a member of this, ISO 2002 group, along with such players like Visa and MasterCard and the like. You may not be aware, but Ripple is currently the 2nd largest fintech company in the United States, right behind Stripe. And both XRP and Stellar Lumens are both designed to move money at very fast speeds and low cost, which is why I use XLM routinely whenever I need to send cryptocurrency from one exchange to another in order to buy coins that aren't offered on the US-based exchanges that I like to use, for example, Coinbase. They don't offer XRP right now for purchase on their exchange just because of the SEC lawsuit that's currently ongoing. So I have to transfer my funds off that exchange to another exchange in order to buy the tokens that I would like to buy. And then, the average transaction speed for settling for XRP is like 3 to 5 seconds compared to 45 minutes for Bitcoin. I mean, that's incredibly fast, and XRP is much cheaper than Bitcoin. So a lot of great benefits there. The main differences really between these 2 cryptocurrencies is that XRP is geared towards the banking sector and XLM is geared towards more governments and digital currencies. For one, Ukraine chose XLM to build its official digital currency on. So their CBDCs built on, XLM. So why is XRP my favorite token? For all of the reasons that I just mentioned, but basically the fact that Ripple's created to address the issues faced by the current systems in place for cross-border transfers. The current system, the current banking system in place is very sluggish, it's slow, it's laden with delays, and there are sometimes unnecessary complications that can be incredibly frustrating. I experience those on a regular basis. So I just think Ripple, they've created a fantastic product that is going to be very valuable here in the near to far future. And it's very different from other cryptocurrencies that are currently in use right now. It runs on a consensus protocol, and I'll talk about that more in a later video where I go more in depth on XRP. And that mechanism is very different from traditional methods such as proof of work, which is what Bitcoin is, and then proof of stake, which is what Ethereum is. So the other thing that I really like about XRP is the fact that it's capped at 100 billion tokens in supply and circulation. There is no mining of this token, meaning there won't ever be more than 100 billion of these tokens, and 50% are being held in reserve by Ripple themselves, and the other 50% are in circulation for purchase currently. All right, so I wanted to give you a quick snapshot roadmap of ISO 2022. This is just showing you the migration journey and progressing, and that their goal is by the year 2025, all financial institutions will have to be able to process ISO compliant transactions. So this is huge. And as far as cryptocurrencies being utilized to process payments, they have to be compliant with these standards that our banking systems are going to be utilizing. So in my opinion, that means that a lot of these tokens that are not compliant or compatible with these standards, we may see some of them fail, we may see some of them drop off, we may see some of them disappear and just not be traded anymore, because people are going to be putting their money in assets that have utility and can be used in today's financial system. So just keep that in mind. And also right here, I mean, there are parts of this, these standards that are going into effect as of this year, as of early 2023. I think some of that has to do with the enhancements on the messaging side, but the real big timestamp for this is by 2025. All of the financial institutions, all of the banks are going to have to be able to process this in order to be compliant. So just wanted to share that real quick. And then here, I wanted to show a quick snapshot of the registration management group members list for the ISO 2022. And right there at the bottom, I've highlighted in red Ripple as a member, alongside, Visa, Swift, MasterCard, all these other players that, are involved with this implementation. So in my mind, that's a huge green flag being waved around that Ripple is going to be a part of this. They are going to be a big player in the years to come regarding cross-border payments. And why is that? Because the technology that this token was built on allows for exponential increase of e-commerce on a scale that we have not yet experienced. And there is enough tokens out there, 100 billion tokens, that if it was given the right value, for example, if each token, the Ripple token, was worth around $500,000, it could probably, those 100 billion tokens could hold the world's GDP, gross, product, whatever that the world operates in, and could all be run off of this Ripple ledger. And e-commerce and trades and sending money from country to country could be so easy and done quickly and fast. And because of the features of how this technology is built, their on-demand liquidity would allow these countries to settle their transactions within those 3 to 5 seconds. It's amazing. And currently, the Ripple payment network works with worldwide financial institutions from over 55 countries. I mean, they're already in 22 destination markets. And that's with them being like railroaded here in the United States. I feel like they're being held back because of the speed that they're moving is so quick. Our banking system isn't ready yet, and they haven't developed their own CBDCs yet to even compete on this scale. So they had to be slowed down a little bit. I'm conflicted in that because on one hand, I'd love to see XRP raise in price to where I think it should be. On the other hand, I'm really grateful that the price of XRP is still so affordable that I can continue to buy more over time and continue to build my portfolio assets. So it's a blessing, it's a curse. You choose, but really it's not too late for you to pick up XRP incredibly cheap. I mean, right now it has raised in price from like 30 something cents, 35, 32 cents to it's upwards of like 46 cents as of this week. I don't know what it is today. I haven't checked, but I'm sure it's probably raised up in price even further. You can still get some, reasonably cheap. So take that as free advice, not financial advice, but and then here on the right, I have, differences between Bitcoin and XRP. This is just a quick snapshot I just wanted to share. I saw this in an article and I thought it was pretty interesting, and it'd be great to just kind of illustrate to you guys that yes, Bitcoin is the first coin ever invented, but it is a proof of work, meaning you can still mine this coin. And being the first, it's still incredibly, slow. And it's inexpensive to transact in. And if you look at, some of these things, it's, ownership is public. No one person owns it. XRP is private. It's owned by, Ripple Labs, but the protocols, the algorithms that they work on are vastly different. The block size, Ethereum, block size one gigabyte. The transactions per second that Bitcoin can perform is literally 10 transactions per second, whereas XRP can process up to 1,500 transactions per second. And I'm pretty sure it was designed to be able to move funds, a large amount of funds at a time, meaning its optimal use is when XRP is valued at over, I think it's like over 5 digits or something. So literally over 100,000 per XRP coin. That was what its intention of being designed. And I haven't been able to find the white paper that really discusses this, but I've heard experts talk about that. So it makes sense to me that if XRP was valued over 100,000 or 500,000 per coin, it would make the most sense, because then governments, it would make it very easy for them to transact within each other, sending funds to and from each other in seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, and having that settlement completed in that period of time and having the on-demand liquidity that they need. Also, the supply here is vastly different. Like I mentioned, Bitcoin only has 21 million, I think maybe even a little more now, because you can mine it and create new coins for Bitcoin. But if you think about this as well, the energy consumption, Bitcoin is not energy efficient. In my opinion, XRP is. So if you're, into the going green of it all, XRP makes a heck of a lot more sense. So just sharing some information that you might find interesting there. So moving on, I know that we covered a lot of information here, and I always want to leave, my viewers with a little bit of hope and actionable things that you can do to help better yourself in your current situation against some of the things that might be headed in the future for our countries. So what assets are going to be going up in value? My personal opinion, I put some of these on the screen here. Some things that could be more recession proof, so to speak, also create some cash flow options for you. And this is not financial advice. You need to do your own research and find out what is best for you. And with your current, financial situation, make your own decisions on what you would like to do to help hedge against the inflation that is coming to the United States. And I do believe commodities, real assets like gold and silver and copper, palladium, things like that are going to be going up in value. We could very well see $600 silver an ounce and gold at $3,500 an ounce pretty soon. Right now, silver is sitting at 26, maybe a little lower than that, maybe $22 an ounce. I have to look it up. But that's incredibly cheap. Silver is like a go-to for me because I can just go buy, a coin or 2 coins every, couple of weeks if I wanted to. It's not too expensive. Whereas gold, on the other hand, it fluctuates between $1,800, $1,900 an ounce. So getting a gold coin is a little bit harder to do than a silver coin, in my opinion. But both are going to maintain value, and they are a store of value. The one thing about the commodities right now is they've been so manipulated over the last few decades because, they're linked to a lot of different things. We use silver in almost all of the technologies that we have. I mean, all these microchips that we manufacture, the computers, silver's in everything. If silver really was valued at the price that it's supposed to be valued at, the technologies that we utilize today would be so expensive, the average everyday working class individual probably wouldn't be able to afford it. So they kind of have to manipulate these commodity markets and pricing, in my opinion. I think that's why that they do it. Another thing, I mean, we've had bankers, I think it was JP Morgan and Chase a few years ago, they got convicted for manipulating the commodities pricing. And what's amazing about this is they actually deferred prosecution. I'll have to find the article. Hopefully I could share it, but I don't know of any judicial system in the world where you can be convicted of a crime and then defer your punishment until you're like 90 years old. So essentially it'd be like, oh, this person committed murder. They did the crime. They were convicted of the crime. They were given a sentence, but they were given permission to defer their sentence, life sentence, whatever it was, 10 years, 20 years. They were able to defer it until they're 90 or pretty much dead. That right there, if you don't see that as corruption, I don't know what is, but I just don't think that's fair. I don't know how they're allowed to operate in that way, and how they're able to get away with that kind of stuff. I'm hoping to see some of those things rectify themselves in the near future. But anyways, one of the pictures that's not on here that I did want to talk about, real estate, and more specifically land, good land, the rich like farmland, I think is going to be very valuable in the future. Rental properties can be tricky at this time that we're coming into, just because unless you're going to be paying cash or have a huge down payment on these rental properties or real estate that you're going to buy into, it could be a little bit of a riskier move. I like to just remind people to learn from what happened in 2020, where renters were not required to pay rent, some of them for over a year, and the tenants couldn't be evicted. the owners of the properties could not evict these tenants due to the financial hardships of COVID. So what ended up happening to a lot of property owners? Well, the mortgages were still due to the banks. They didn't get a free pass. They still had to pay those mortgages on a monthly basis. And many of those property owners who were invested in these properties as income, rentals, when the income stopped coming in, they couldn't legally evict their tenants for non-payment, and they ended up going into bankruptcy. And then who collected the ownership of those foreclosures? The banks did. So the banks didn't lose out. They got to keep the assets because they were the ones that wrote the loans on these, rental properties. And then they go and sell them and make even more profits. So it's an ugly situation, but just be forewarned, because I know one of the strategies Robert Kiyosaki talks about is using debt, leveraging debt in order to build wealth. And if you are going to do that, just be aware that it's very likely we could be facing in the future more pandemics, more diseases coming, more lockdowns, more situations of financial crises where inflation could cause people to lose their jobs, could cause people to not be able to afford to pay their rents. Government again could slap laws down that prevent the eviction of people from their homes because of non-payment. And who does that affect? Again, the owner of the properties. So it's a lose-lose scenario. It's not great, but there are other assets that you can look into investing in my opinion, cryptocurrencies. The technology that these tokens are built on are going to be the future of our financial system and payment processing. So I'm of the opinion that the tokens that are ISO 20022 compliant are going to do really well over the next 2 to 10 years. And certainly by 2025, we're going to see a huge rally of pricing that's going to happen there. And hopefully by that time, Ripple will have this whole SEC lawsuit, worked out, and will be able to freely be traded here in the United States like it is in other parts of the world. So, yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The other thing I do highly recommend is learning how to store your digital assets in a safe wallet, a cold wallet, an air-gapped wallet. Keep it in your possession. You have ownership over your private keys. And if you don't know what private keys are or hardware wallets are, visit my channel. I go through all that and explain how you can become your own bank, bypass the corruption of the banks and the failing systems that are happening right now. You can go on my channel and learn more about that. And then lastly, foreign currencies. I believe that there have been some foreign currencies that have been devalued for a long period of time and whose countries are actually very rich in natural resources. For example, the Iraqi dinar, currently, I think you can pick up a little under 1,000 Iraqi dinar for $1 US. And they've been talking over a year now about revaluating the Iraqi dinar to, $3 US for one Iraqi dinar. And it could be more. We'll see when that becomes effective. It's most likely going to happen after the devaluation of the US dollar. And Iraq is rich in oil. They've got a lot of natural resources. So this is something that has also happened before in the 80s. So if you're thinking, oh, that's not possible, that's a get rich quick scheme. No, this has happened before. This happened in the 80s, and people that were invested in the Iraqi dinar and have been holding onto the Iraqi dinar literally became millionaires overnight. So look it up, read on it if you don't believe me. It is a thing. And there are people in the dinar community who have been holding on to Iraqi dinar for over a decade, waiting for this to happen. And I think we're about there. I think we're going to see this happen within the next year to 2 years. I don't think it'll be more than 3 years before Iraq Iraqi's government settles on a price and makes it official. So I think the Vietnamese dong is another one that could certainly be revalued. I think Zimbabwe, their Zim bond, they have $1 trillion Zim bond that I think their country could be, currencies could be revalued. Africa, those places are rich in gold. I mean, they have an abundance of natural resources. And I think in the new economic markets that's going to be emerging, I think their country is going to be booming. And Uganda shilling is another one. I think Uganda could be another currency that could go up in value. So just throwing some of those out there, consider research on your own time and decide what is best and right for you. So I'll leave you with this. If you want to learn more about cryptocurrencies, how to trade, buy, sell, set orders for cryptocurrencies, how to become your own bank, how to store your digital assets safely, what assets you can invest into to hedge against inflation, how you can also create multiple streams of income, talk about, selecting assets that can create cash flow and passive income for you. Visit me on my Patreon channel at patreon.com/digital dollars now. I go into more of that there, and we'll certainly have more content coming soon about all of these things that I just discussed with you today. So thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.